Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we're going to be talking about the Washington Wizards and sort of going over some of their offseason moves here and how they fit into the Wizards' sort of plan moving forward. So, we'll start off with just the obvious here. The Wizards are or were one of the worst teams in the league last season. They won just 15 games overall. Not particularly impressive, and it's assumed by most, including me, I would say, that the team plans on losing or tanking again this year, right? Especially with Cooper Flag as someone who's expected or believed to be available in this upcoming draft. The Wizards are going to be one of the teams looking to situate themselves in the best position to draft Flag as a potential difference maker. Now, with that in mind, there's a lot of people who are slightly confused about some of the offseason moves that the Washington Wizards have made here because at first glance, they don't look entirely like the moves of a team looking to outright tank. Up for interpretation, but we'll get to the sort of facts first here. In terms of offseason additions, the Wizards signed both Saddiq Bey and Jonas Valanciunas to multi-year deals. They swung a trade for Malcolm Brogdon, who's in the final year of his deal, and they re-signed Richaun Holmes to a 2-year contract. Technically speaking, the second year is not guaranteed, but the framework is a 2-year deal. So that is 4 guys who are either, signed as a free agent, traded for, or re-signed to the roster here. And some of those moves go against what people's conventional outlook on tanking is, right? Which is lose as many games as you can, cut costs wherever you can, don't make moves, don't go out and spend assets on guys like the ones that the Wizards picked up here, which some teams play it that way. Some teams go into full-on sort of austerity mode and spend no money, trade no picks, do nothing, and outright tank. But for the Wizards, these moves do kind of make sense if you look at what the perceived long-term plan is for Washington, right? The logic is there if you're sort of willing to follow it. So let's follow that logic. If the Wizards are really tanking, which they sure as hell seem to be, then the timeline that they're looking at here is not returning to being competitive in the next 1 to 2 years. We're looking somewhere more like 3 or 5 years down the road, right? 3 being on sort of the shorter end of that. So because of that, we can sort of recontextualize the moves that they made in this offseason, right? Saddiq Bey and Jonas Valanciunas are off the books after the 2026-2027 season, so they won't be with the team long term. While they are with the team, they're going to be relatively cheap. Their combined salaries come out to somewhere between $15 and $16 million per year across the whole of their contract, so they're not really breaking the bank on that front. Meanwhile, Malcolm Brogdon is already in the last year of his contract, so he's going to be sort of off their books, off their team salary well before anyone else here. And if you look at Richaun Holmes, as I mentioned, it's a 1 year guaranteed, 1 year not. But if you're looking at the latest possible date that contract could end, that would still be the end of the 25-26 season at the latest. So everyone that they added here is removed from their salary considerations by the end of the 2026-2027 season. The end of that season also happens to be when the current contracts of Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma would expire as well. So pretty much every major financial commitment that the Wizards have right now will be, barring extensions or re-signings, off of their books by the end of that year, 2026-2027. So by the time the team's current sort of young players, guys like Bilal Coulibaly Alex Sarr, whoever they get in next year's draft. Obviously not sure of that yet. But by the time those young players are coming up on the ends of their rookie deals, the period where the Wizards will presumably know for sure whether they can be the foundation of their team moving forward, all their other financial commitments will be either expiring or already gone, right? I've been using that 2026-2027 season as sort of the milestone here, so we'll keep to that. By the end of that season, right, Coulibaly will have been in his last year, Alex Sarr would have 1 year remaining, and their 2025 draft pick would have 2 years left. So the Wizards would then be in a position to decide who they want to keep, right? Sarr, Coulibaly, and whoever their draft pick could be. Do you lock them down long term? Do you look to keep Poole and Kuzma for another go around? Someone like Bey or Valanciunas could be re-signed at that point as well, but they would have that flexibility, right? None of those players would be locked into any further contracts long term. So when you look at it from that perspective, the Wizards do have the luxury, I suppose, of sort of signing these players now. And it's also worth noting at this point, I was talking about these contracts along the lines of them playing out in their entirety. That doesn't have to necessarily be true here. The Wizards don't have to keep any of these guys long term and see out the entirety of their contract, right? There might be teams at the deadline, either this season or next, who would send assets to Washington for someone like Bey, for someone like Valanciunas, for someone like Malcolm Brogdon, guys who have experience and could potentially be a difference maker or simply just reinforcements for teams that are looking to make sort of runs into the playoffs. And you can't even rule out the possibility that the Wizards potentially even move on from someone like Kyle Kuzma. There were already sort of rumors of teams kicking the tires on a Kuzma trade this last offseason. So the Wizards are in a position where if they play out the contracts in their entirety, it won't really affect the window that they're looking at. If they want to trade any of those players, then they recoup assets for the long term as well. So long story short, the Wizards do appear to be tanking, right? That part was really never in doubt. But since the process has already begun, instead of the Wizards being at the start of the tanking process, their timeline looks a little bit different, right? They've already got the high sort of draft picks that they want to sort of build around, like Coulibaly and Sarr. So the idea is those young guys that they already have, plus, again, whoever they get in the upcoming draft, they will be the foundation for the future. So with that in mind, the Wizards don't have to be overly concerned with any signing or deal or trade that they make in the short term, so long as they don't sacrifice, massive amounts of assets to do so. So is it the right choice? I don't really know. That's up for debate, but the Wizards do appear to have decided upon the time frame that they want to work with, and so they are basing their decision-making process around trying to hit that window. So I don't know. Even if it's a bad plan, at least they have one and they are trying to stick to it, and that's worth something, I suppose. But let me know what you think. For the Wizards here, where do you anticipate them being? Do you think they're going to be near the bottom of the standings once again? Do you think that they beat out the 15 win total they had last season? And what do you think they do with some of these guys? Will there be interest at the deadline for guys like Bey or Valanciunas or Brogdon? Or do you believe that any of the guys that they added could be a part of the next version of the Wizards in the next couple of years? But either way, please feel free to let me know what you think. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.